9.5, where you're adding and subtracting rational expressions. So in the last section we talked about a rational expression is any expression that has a variable in the denominator. So we're jumping to VIX today because we want to remember that when adding or subtracting you need a common denominator. You have to have a common denominator amongst each of your terms. So our first example is to add. We have 3 over x minus 5 plus x plus 2 over x minus 5. Since they both have the same denominator, we can combine my numerators to be 3 plus x plus 2 all over that common denominator of x minus 5. And then you simplify what you can up top. So you combine like terms, I just have an x, and 3 plus 2 is 5, so I have x plus 5 over x minus 5. Don't forget that we should also state our restrictions, what values in the denominator you can't use. Second one is that we're going to subtract. Subtraction is a little more difficult because you have x minus 3 over x plus 2 minus 3x plus 4 over x plus 2. What happens with subtraction is that you have to make sure that you do distribute this negative 1 that's there to each of these terms. Again, it's over the same denominator, so that's okay. From here, you have x minus 3x is a negative 2x, but this negative has to distribute to both of those, so it's negative 3 minus a negative 4, which turns into negative 3 plus 4, which is a positive 1. So from here, you have negative 2x plus 1 over x plus 2, where x cannot be equal to negative 2. For our last one, we want to be able to subtract. In this case, you have 4 over x minus 1 minus 7 over x plus 4. You need a common denominator. We're not able to combine these terms to make it a negative 3 up top. You have to make sure that you have this common denominator. Please pause. Sorry for the interruption. So we need a common denominator. Most of the time, you're just combining whatever your denominators are together. So my common denominator is x minus 1 times x plus 4. So we need to figure out what's missing in order to combine these two together to have that common denominator. So over here with an x minus 1, we need the x plus 4 because that's what I'm missing in my common denominator. But I need it to be a factor of 1 because this over this is 1, and multiplying anything times 1 doesn't change itself. So when you do that, you have to distribute this 4 to each of these terms. So you get 4x plus 16 over this combined denominator. You do not need to multiply or distribute that out. You can leave it as such. Minus, and then if I distribute this out, you have 7x minus 7, which is what I have up here, over that common denominator again of x plus 4 over x minus 1. Notice it doesn't need to be in the same order because in multiplication you can switch a times b equals b times a. It's commutative. So then you take this first term, and I'm subtracting my second term now that I have a common denominator. Don't forget, though, that you have to distribute this negative 1 whenever you have a negative. 4x minus 7x is a negative 3x, and 16 minus a negative 7 is a positive 23 over that common denominator. Again, you don't need to FOIL that out. You can leave it in factored form, but make sure that you also include your restrictions of the values that you can't use. So we can't use negative 4, and we can't use positive 1.